Welcome to Tuesdays with Terra. I'm Terra Bundance, and today I'm going to talk about authenticity. I must say that authenticity is probably my very favorite word. It means more to me than pretty much any other word other than love. And authenticity to me is all about being true to yourself. And so it incorporates truth, it incorporates honesty, it incorporates vulnerability, love, especially self love, and so many other concepts that sort of bind together to create this word authenticity. So, what does it mean to be authentic? I'm going to be very upfront, very honest. I don't really plan that much for these videos. And what that means to me is that I spend some time with the word or the topic that I'm going to be talking about. And I just let it settle into my heart and I let it come through my voice in a way that might be known as channeling information or tapping into greater knowledge based on things that I personally have learned and figured out over my lifetime or working with clients one on one or in group settings, but also just letting the knowledge of the universe kind of come in and become part of the video. So to me, that's what authenticity means in a setting such as this. When I am being honest with myself, when I'm being true to myself, when I'm being really deeply tuned in to my heart, my awareness, the universe, and all things, I feel like authenticity flows through me. But when I'm trying to put on airs or impress someone or, gain some points or kudos from someone, I notice that what ends up happening is I'm less authentic because I start to dig into my brain and I don't give myself enough time to really listen internally. And I just start saying things and throwing things out that seem cool or impressive, but aren't really coming from me. And so, authenticity in a nutshell for me is being honest and true to what's inside of each and every one of us. So, your authenticity is going to look different than my authenticity because we're being authentic to ourselves. I'm not trying to impress you or figure out things that you might want to hear just because I'm trying to say the right thing. What I end up doing with authenticity is just listening to what my heart wants to say. So what does authenticity mean to you? What kind of things show up for you as authentic? For me, I was looking up a few people, celebrities that might be authentic. First person that pops into my head when I think about authenticity is Lizzo. I mean, she's pretty flippin' authentic. And there's so many other performers and actors and celebrities and famous people out there, and it's not that hard to notice when somebody's being authentic because all you have to do is watch them in an interview when they're looking someone in the eyes, or even if they look away, that they're taking a moment to really dig deep, and be present with their answer instead of just saying the first thing that they think the person wants to hear. So I've been studying and practicing authenticity for quite a few years now. One of my earliest tattoos that I received is the I Ching symbol for truth and sincerity. It's on my back. I got that because for me, truth is very important and it has been for a good portion of my life. But what I can also tell you is that when I was younger, I was very inauthentic. And part of the reason for that was codependency. I was so codependent and I wanted to impress people. I wanted to prove myself to people. I felt like I had to prove myself to people just to get people to like me or to even notice me. And the problem with that is that most of the time people know you're faking. And so they tend to call you out or they make fun of you behind your back. So what I noticed was that family members were picking on me and making fun of me behind my back. And that felt very hurtful. And what I realized is that in a really bizarre twist of fate, they actually helped me figure out how fake I was being. And part of the reason I feel is that I finally found my voice and I finally found my authenticity. And so it was almost like they couldn't pick on me anymore. They couldn't make fun of me anymore. They couldn't make me feel less than anymore. And unfortunately, when people try to make you feel less than, it's because they're feeling less than. But also, when somebody points out your flaws, even in a bullying way, you can walk away with the lesson, which is what I chose to do. I walked away with the awareness and the understanding that in some ways they were pointing out where my negativity was or where my lack of self love and self care and authenticity was. So I gained that lesson, but I still was able to walk away in a healthy way and not allow them to treat me that way anymore. We all have people in our lives that try to tear us down, and so we can take it personally, or we can choose not to take it personally and walk away with the lesson instead. And that's where healthy choices come from. Basically, us being able to learn from the lessons that show up in our lives and take them in and really let them become a part of the new version of ourselves. So when I chose authenticity over being hurt and trying to prove myself and impress other people, I started learning a little more about who I wanted to be in the world. And that didn't start until pretty much late 20s. Once I hit my late 20s, I started recognizing that I kept saying yes to things I didn't want to say yes to. I kept doing things that I didn't want to do, mostly because I was trying to help other people or because I was trying to make people like me. And that's not authentic. Me being authentic means that I may not impress people. I may piss some people off. I may hurt some people's feelings. I don't do it on purpose. But what I recognize is that I'm not trying to hurt other people's feelings by being authentic. I'm just trying to be me. And the problem with taking things personally is that basically we're listening to what other people say about us instead of listening to what ourselves might know already about us. Authenticity. Really settle into that word. Being authentic. What does it mean for you to be authentic? Does it mean speaking up for yourself? Does it mean saying no to things you don't want to do? Does it mean saying yes to things you do want to do that maybe other people don't want you to do? It's really all about what works in a healthy way for you and doesn't harm other people on purpose. So I'm not going to hurt people by being authentic on purpose. What I am going to do is be authentic. And if people get hurt, I know that that's not necessarily my problem or my fault. So being authentic isn't really about trying to prove yourself to anybody. It's about listening to your inner voice, listening to your inner knowing. What is it that your heart says? When you get down in your guts and you really tune in and you breathe and you take a moment before you respond to things, pause before you respond. One of my favorite phrases. And what it means to me is I take a moment. Somebody asks me a question that feels like it puts me on the spot. Instead of just answering right away, I take a moment. I breathe into my heart and I respond from that place. What that does for me is it gives me permission to slow things down. I need things to slow down often when I feel put on the spot. When I feel put on the spot and I don't slow things down, I get kind of crazy. I get kind of just out of my mind. I can't think very clearly and I stop being authentic. I stop being real. I just start trying to impress and say things that I think people want to hear. So when you see me pause, if you're speaking with me, if you see me pause for a moment and then answer from that place, you know that I'm being authentic to myself. When I just spout off answers, unless I just already know the answer or feel like I'm already aware of what I need to say, I'm still going to pause a little bit and take my time responding, because often when someone asks a question and I say to them, I don't know, first thing off, what that tells me is I don't care to know. But if I can take a moment and say, I'm not really sure. Let me think about that. That's an authentic response. If I just am afraid and get into anxiety and panic and feeling like, oh God, I have to come up with an answer right now, that's not authenticity. That's not authentic. That's just trying to show up in a way that you think someone wants you to show up. When I think about authenticity, I think about I have to be vulnerable first. By being vulnerable, I'm allowing for myself to really get real, really show up. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and vulnerability is uncomfortable. Authenticity can be uncomfortable until you get comfortable with it. And basically, being vulnerable and allowing for that authentic self, the authentic me to show up, it becomes easier every single moment of my life because then I don't feel like I have to answer anyone from a place of fear or anxiety. I want you to really think about authenticity this week. Where does it show up in your life? Who do you know that's authentic? When you see someone like Lizzo or Hugh Jackman or some of these celebrities that are so authentic, people try to attack them and make them look dumb when in fact they themselves don't look so smart. The people who are trying to make them look silly or dumb are not the authentic people, and they end up looking kind of silly because authentic people usually don't care what other people think about them. They don't take things as personally as people who are faking and trying to just get by. So, making sure that by being authentic, being truthful and honest and real and in integrity with our word, like the Four Agreements says, being in integrity with our word is being authentic, being real, being honest, being present, being in the body. And I highly recommend it. It's a high. It's something that you can't really explain or describe, but when you're being real and authentic in a moment that you might have normally been scared, panicky, anxious, freaked out, uncomfortable, even sad, or enraged, if you can't let that come out in a natural and authentic way, it really bogs us down. It creates sickness, it creates dis-ease within our bodies, which can eventually create disease. And so being real, being authentic, being present, being willing to say the uncomfortable, awkward thing, willing to say no when you know the person wants you to say yes, willing to say, I'm going to do this, even when you know somebody doesn't want you to. That is a high. And if you can live in that high kind of vibrational place, that's what many people call bliss or joy. And some people say that you can't live in bliss all the time. And the truth is, sometimes we got to come out of that space to remember what it feels like to not be in that space. But for the most part, I think it's okay to live in a blissful, joyful, true, present space, recognizing all the emotions. In bliss, we can find our sadness. In bliss, we can find our discomfort. In bliss, we can find our pain. And we can find our joy, and we can find our happiness, and we can find our excitement, and we can find all the feelings because that state of bliss means that there's a presence about us. And even in bliss, sadness can feel very authentic. Feeling uncomfortable can feel very authentic. And isn't that kind of what we're all looking for is being able to feel what we're feeling in every given moment and truly be there with the feelings. Let people know I'm feeling really sad right now, or I'm very angry about what just happened or about what just went down, and I need to take a moment for myself. Trust leads to vulnerability, leads to authenticity. So if we can trust ourselves to be vulnerable, we can live in our authenticity. Really think about that this week. Spend some time with it. Give yourself an opportunity to just really tune in to your authentic self and be you out loud. Have a blessed and beautiful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Tuesdays with Terra.